2026. And then we'll do a service by service discussion for most of the services that are applicable to RDC services that are applicable to Kaslo and Area D, and then some pie charts showing the estimated taxation by area.
Introduce yourself, yes.
Oh, sorry, I will introduce myself. We'll get everyone to introduce themselves here. Sonia Vanella, I'm the General Manager, Finance, IT, and Procurement and as well as the CFO for the regional district.
Over to you, Mayor.
Mayor Susan Hewitt. I am the Municipal Director with the Regional District of Central Quebec.
Amy Watson, Area D Director, North Queensland.
Okay. So just a reminder, this is a draft budget, so it's not written in stone yet. So we still have changes going on, adjustments to last year. All these public meetings, we still have a few committee and commission meetings going on in which could influence and adjust the budget. And it all culminates with the board adoption of the budget just under a month away on March 19th. Budget review process. So we started off last October, meetings with at board meetings, we reviewed various core services, committees and commissions, covered parks, recreational, depending where they are, some utilities, resource recovery. And then we also have now 3 local service committees, one in the Creston Valley, one in the Slocan Valley, and then North Kootenay Lake here with Kaslo and Area D, where various services are discussed in with the participants at the service committee level. And then as well, we have a few services such as fire, et cetera, that are direct discussion with the directors if they aren't addressed at the committee or at the committee level. So regional district 1 of 27 in the NBC. Our RDCK is made up of 11 rural electoral areas, A through K. 9 member municipalities provides 186 services, including parks and rec, fire protection, resource recovery, waste, building inspection, planning, GIS, bylaw, transit, and a number of others. And each service stands on its own. So that's the big difference between a municipality, or one of the big differences between a municipality and regional district is each service is taxed and accounted on its own, and it's not a big pot of money. We just we allocate out. We do a budget for every service, and then depending which where you live, and if you are receive benefits from that service, then property owners will be taxed just for that service. So some statistics: just under 300 full-time equivalent employees, 280 volunteer firefighters, about 63,000 residents. I'm sure it's more than that since the census was done 5 years ago, and right around 22,000 square kilometers. This is just a bit of a list of all the, or not all, most of the BC provincial regulations that impact the RDCK. The 2 main ones are the Local Government Act and the Community Charter. But the others do definitely impact what we do, and they are updated on a regular basis. Most recently, EMA, Emergency and Disaster Management Act, is greatly influencing what our emergency management group is doing, and I'll talk a bit about that later. Okay, so how are annual property taxes for RDCK calculated? As mentioned, we work out the tax required to run each service through through our budget process. So that's on the left-hand side of the bar there. And independently of that, the province, the BC assessment, which is an arm of the provincial government, they do the property determine the property assessment values And those are the letters that are sent out at the beginning of the month. So again, these are two independent processes. And then once we calculate the amount of taxation required for each service, we're able to calculate a tax rate per $1,000 of assessment based on the BC assessments valuation. And that's for each service, so we don't combine them as a municipality does. And then you take the assessed value of each individual property, and then you get the property tax for that property for that service. So there will be, I'll show you a list of various services, and then you'll see how that appears in your property taxes. One thing to note, parcel taxes are separate from this. They're not based on assessment. They're based on a per parcel value, or sorry, the tax is per parcel. Okay, assessment changes. So this bar graph here shows two items. In the blue is the 1 year change. So that's the average change across the area of municipality as a percentage year over year. And then the orange is a 10-year average annual change. So as we can see here, Area G had the highest increase by far, just over 7%. D is averaging just over 1, and Kaslo actually had a slight reduction. So from Area G to Area I, we're looking at about a 9% spread there. But if you look at the orange graphs, orange bars, which are over 10-year periods, it's down. The average spread is only about 4. So it just shows that over long term, areas don't really get far ahead of each other in the regional district. If you go back over the course of the last 5 years, it on the left-hand side is different areas and municipalities and versus the right, and it seems to change, ebb and flow year to year. Okay, so there's our latest draft of financial plans available on the website, and so these are the 3 main components of it. On the left-hand side is what we call taxation detail by area municipality. That shows all the services that everybody in the area pays, which is the top part, into, and then the bottom are defined area taxation. I'll talk about that in a bit. And then there's a summary table, which I'll also bring up, that shows compares all the areas, their assessment change and taxation change. And then after that, the bulk of the financial plan are those 280 service statements, which go into quite a bit of detail, basically by account, where the spending is, and basically the flows of funds in and out of the service over the 5-year period, also showing last year's budget and last year's current actions. So this from the budget, this is a example. This is for Area D. So again, don't expect anybody to read this, but it basically on the left-hand side is the services. On the top part before the subtotal is the services that every property participates in or pays into in Area D. And then on the bottom are the services that only portions of Area D participate in. So some properties have fire protection, some don't. Some have mosquito control, others don't. So that just lists out all the services that Area D residents pay into. And it's over the course of 3 years, so you can go back and compare it from 24 and 25 compared to 26. And similarly for the village of Kaslo, These are the services that all residents of Kaslo, all property owners pay into. There are no defined areas in Kaslo for RDCK services. All these services every property owner in Kaslo pays into. And this is just an example. It's from another area of a regional district taxation bill. This is sent out by the provincial government. Regional district does not direct or collect taxation funds. The provincial government does for that for the RDCK, charges a fee to do that. And so on your bill where it says local services, there will be on the services that everybody in your area pays into will be lumped together. So instead of saying F Central Kootenay, let's say D Central Kootenay, and that will be those services that are in the top part of that table. And then the services that are individual, depending where you live, will be listed individually on your tax bill. Okay, this is the summary table from the financial plan. So listing all the areas and municipalities. It shows the assessment change on the left-hand side. So this year's assessment compared to last year's. So 2.64 average increase. Area D just about 2% increase. And Village of Kaslo, that small decrease that we talked about. And then if we go to the far right-hand side, it shows the overall average net change. That's for everybody in Area D in taxation. So average property owner will see a 4.3% increase in Area D, and Village of Kaslo 7.9%. For Area D, they will depend on where you live and how much the value of your home went up or down compared to everybody else is going to determine your actual increase. Some property owners will see less than 4%. Some will see greater than 4%. Okay, so the overall outlook for 2026, so projected average tax increase of 5% based on the budget from last week. So the $40.3 million in total tax requisitions is actually $1.5 million lower than we had projected in last year's plan for 2026. Some of the items that are common across the financial plan is a CPI increase of 2.5%. That's based on provincial CPI, and we have a few union positions in rec and in resource recovery. Their collective agreement had a 3.4% increase this year. As many of you are aware, there's been decreasing interest rates, so that reduces some of our interest charges, but it also reduces investment income. So those appear to have stabilized over the last few months, the short-term rates. The political climate and foreign trade, including tariffs and counter tariffs, is still causing a few challenges. Uncertainty in the supply chain and some procurement costs. That uncertainty is leading to some degree of slowing economic activity. It didn't last year. We did see actually increased lower building permit levels, but it is having some effect. And then if this leads to a more severe economic downturn, it could have a wider effect on the regional district. Fluctuating Canadian dollar gives us a bit of variability in our procurement costs. And then the other one, artificial intelligence, which is on the news quite a bit. The technology is evolving quickly. Use is definitely increasing, although I would say it's still fairly limited. And of course, we need to be mindful of accuracy and privacy concerns. And our staff do have a guideline on AI use that was implemented last year. Okay, I'll go through a few slides, or sorry, graphs. These are for the entire regional district. This just helps to give a bit of a viewpoint about what services the regional district provides and where the bulk of the tax dollars go. So the largest by quite a bit are parks and recreation and community services. So the three main rec facilities, which are in Nelson, Castlegar, and Creston, make up about 28% of the taxation. But if you add in some of the other community services, parks, museums, and libraries, we're approaching about 40% of total requisition in the regional district is for parks and rec. Next is fire and rescue, about 21%. Resource recovery, which includes waste, organics, and recycling, about 14%. Then transit, and then the rest are smaller numbers that make up the rest. So the requisition increase this year to 5%. In dollar amounts, that's about $2.7 million. Where does that come from? So this is what's known as a waterfall graph, and the blue bars mean that was an increase, orange or red is a decrease. So the major rec facilities make up roughly a quarter of the increase. Then fire, rescue, transit, resource recovery, and then down from there. So this gives a good indication of where most of that came from. And we had a couple of services that decreased as well. And then this next one is, again, as a regional district as a whole, for non-capital expenses. So this is for anything that's not a capital expenditure, what are the main categories, expense types, and what portion of the budget goes into them. So wages and benefits, about 38%. Contracted services, so this is consultants, other services, and things like audit is about 18%. Miscellaneous is a chunk, about 7% paid out in grants, 8% debt servicing, and then also notably reserve contributions are about 13% of the total expense budget.
Can I ask you a question on that one yet?
Yes.
I assume that those are non-capital based reserve contributions.
No, those are all reserve contributions. So when I say non-capital expenses, I'm saying not capital expenditures. So
we're not expending
we're
capital.
not expending capital, right? So
Reserve contributions could be asset management.
Most of them are asset management. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right, and so about not including actual capital expenditure, about a $4 million increase in expenses. Most expenditures, so the reason capital is left out of this, most capital is funded by either borrowing or using reserve contributions. So if we included them in here, it'd be doubling things up. So the actual reserve contributions are up $3.7 million. Wages and benefits about 1.2. That's most of that has to do with CPI increase. And then we have maintenance and a few smaller ones, and we actually have some decreases in a few areas, including debt servicing services and grants. So basically, the bulk of that expenditure increases from reserve contributions, and then next would be wages and benefits. Okay, so we're going to jump into go through some of these services. So the individual budgets for each of these services and the financial plan. So we'll just do a bit of a higher level overview. So S100 is the general admin. This includes finance, IT, HR, corporate admin, municipal directors. So we're seeing a 16% taxation increase in 2026. So that 16%, there's a couple unusual items. So there's $150,000 less prior surplus carried forward. And then we're seeing a $70,000 increase in annual fees for accounting software, where our accounting software basically provider was no longer supporting the version we're using, and we had to move to a cloud version. So fees are higher, as well as $60,000 to migrate this to the cloud. So we're not the only local government that is experiencing this. So Unit 4 is our accounting software, and basically all their customers are having to do this. And then the other component of that 16% increase is that wage increase we just talked about. A few other points there. Housing availability and is still, and high expectation for wages is still impacting recruitment efforts. There's some continued IT work on migrating to Microsoft 365, as well as building out cybersecurity.
Just see if there's any questions. I know that prior surplus thing can be a little confusing. There's actually only one person online. So you guys didn't get any questions?
No, we had to look up what CPI meant.
Oh, consumer price
Price
index.
index.
Interesting. There's also a municipal price index I've just learned about. Oh, yeah. Learn about that later. But
Yeah.
the prior surplus is related to money moved forward last year, and usually you would use that to kind of smooth out future taxation. We used a significant amount last year. So it's not that the actual expenses increased, it's that we don't have the same amount of prior year surplus to apply to it. Did I get that right yet?
Yeah. So and that speaks to the point that if a service doesn't spend all its funds, then those funds are brought forward into the next year. So they're not gone somewhere. They're actually have to stay in that service. And also if a service overspends, then that taxation has to be made up the next year.
Susan, you were going to say something.
Posting a different thing for the financial plan, then you don't have to jump to 527.
Oh, great.
There.
Please do.
Okay, so rural admin is made up, so 17% taxation decrease in 2025. So this service now is mainly bylaw enforcement. Probably makes up about 80% of this service now. So this includes noise animal control, unsightly nuisance property zoning, and a few other bylaws. So bylaws vary by electoral area. They're not region wide. So not every area has animal control or noise. So legal review of noise, nuisance, and unsightly bylaw will take place this year, and then new dog control services are rolling out this year in, I believe, 4 areas. The other thing that's in the service of the rural directors, so their stipends or their wages, and then some of their travel related costs. And the service used to be quite a bit larger. It used to encompass regional fire overhead, but that's been moved to service A107, just so that it's a little better, a bit better transparency and So it's shown on its own now.
Can I make a few comments on the service? I forgot
Sure.
to tell you, I'll probably do this. So rule admin, for anyone that's interested, when it comes to the actual bylaws that are applied to area D, unsightly and noise are the only two bylaws that apply to area D, and Ainsworth is the only zoned community in all of area D. And
Ainsworth is what?
the only zoned community. You have
What is
OCP. All of area D minus Cooper Creek and Hauser and North have an official community plan, which is the baseline document. Zoning, which is actual regulations of land use, only applies in Ainsworth. There's no zoning in the rest of area D. So that's an actual project that we've been working on for quite some time, and we should see that coming forward. Fingers crossed in 2026. Doesn't change the taxation. Everybody participates in the rural areas. And then I thought it was also interesting. I looked at the director's stipends. So it's split between general administration and rural administration. And for 20 directors, the general admin amount is 485,000, and the rural admin, which is the electoral area directors, is 344,000, totaling about 829,000 for all 20 directors for the year. And our 2.5% CPI, which is what I was asking, works out to about 20,000. Is that right? Yeah. Off the top of your head, you know stuff.
Yes.
That's what I was passing to you.
Okay.
I think on the comment you made about where the stipends are living, it's part of the rural stipend is also under the general.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not, the rural admin doesn't cover 100% of rural director stipends. It's part of it because they serve the whole regional district.
Yeah. I don't remember the formula, but it is split between the two.
Yeah.
But municipal is not a rural admin. Because you don't
Yeah.
do rural.
No. So S102 is our GIS service. So GIS, which geospatial information systems. So this is basically uses tools and mapping, combines mapping and data for a whole bunch of different purposes. So some of the services they provide are, well, one of the big ones is a public web mapping tool. And then also do landfill surveys, addressing 911 data, fire services, emergency management support, and evacuation mapping. So I believe on the right-hand side there, that is evacuation map from a couple of years ago from the fires northeast of here. So 25% taxation increase in 2026. 40%, $40,000 for required upgrades to their software systems, a piece of hardware with time kinetics replacement, and they're also working on to try to get some grant funding for NG 911 transition project. So NG 911 is a new generation, so moving to a more digitally connected 911 service. And then there was also an increase in general admin fees this year, as there was an undercharge last year. So that's part of what's driving that's 25% taxation increase.
Yeah, the 911 is an example of that. We didn't have a discretion on that. That's actually how the system is shifting, so that 911 is still available for us here.
Yes. So building inspections, actually a 60% taxation decrease in 2026. Permit revenue was stronger than expected in 2025, so just under $1 million versus about a budget just over 900. So this year there's going to be starting a review, drafting of the modernized building bylaw. Digital archiving paper files will continue in 2026. Bluebeam, which is I believe an estimating software, it will be implemented to allow for versatility for plan checkers, and then procurement of 2 vehicles to to replace ones that are end of life in 2026. Planning and land use. So this is just Area D, doesn't include Village of Kaslo. It's responsible for zoning, land use, and development applications, long-term community plans, zoning bylaws, standards and policies in regards to land use. 3% tax increase in 26. Ongoing use of provincial grants and funds to address housing regulations and sub-regional planning. Working on a subdivision servicing bylaw, updating flood hazard regulations, and updates of official community plans.
I'm going to comment on this one. So I just want to acknowledge Sarah, who is on my Advisory Planning and Heritage Commission. Thank you so much for your services, Sarah. And also that it has official community plan updates, but specific for Area D, we're not looking to update the OCP, which is actually comprehensive land use bylaw. We're looking at actual land use regulations and communities that were identified in 2021 through some community processes.
So the resource recovery department is split into 3 sub-regions in the regional district. So east is Creston and areas A, B, and C. So basically everything east of Cooney Lake. Central starts at Salmo, or actually area G on the south, and goes up through Nelson, Kaslo, E, F, area G, and area D in the north. So this includes transfer stations, recycling depots, organics, composting facilities, as well as the transportation of materials. So 187 will see a 3% taxation and a 6.4 tipping fee increase. Procurement of some new equipment replace and light equipment, including compacting trailer, roll-up tractor, and a tractor truck. Work being done on planning the Growing Recycling Depot and hauling building is under assessment and design. Reconstruction of the Marblehead bin wall planned for this year. Work on legacy landfills. So these are landfills that most of them actually predate the regional district. And so when the regional district was formed, they were assumed responsibility for these. So some of these are basically fairly old landfills that need sort of continuing monitoring and closure plans. Assessment and piloting of new septic management options. Some work on commercial organics regulation and organics diversion. So I'll make a comment on these photos on the right. So the middle one is, I believe, the organics operation at Central, so outside of Salmo. So that's a pile of organics cooking there. And on the bottom right, I think is from the Creston landfill. So that's basically the work that's required to close what's known as a cell. That's once it's full. It actually requires a fair bit of work covered with a membrane and various layers of soil. And then I believe there's more material and even planting on top of that. So closing a landfill and filling it is becoming a more and more comprehensive process. Part of the reason for doing this is so that rainwater doesn't leach through the waste and through groundwater and come out somewhere else. Okay, we'll jump over to parks. So service 221, which also includes recreation, which we'll touch upon. So 10.4% increase. So on the park side, 3 parks in 221. So the major projects, so excluding general park maintenance, are Glacier Creek, some water, dirt equipment management, and tree maintenance and ongoing upgrades, picnic tables, fire pits, and at Largo. Ongoing improvements, including invasive management and restoration, and a few items as well as parking signage updates and picnic tables.
What's the Lardo Park?
Lardo Park is the regional park in the community of Lardo.
Oh, okay, so that's a regional district,
There's a
Nice.
regional district park. There's a BC Hydro ramp
right?
that's north of it. And then to south of it, that's actually just Crown land. The park boundaries are the boat launch. So there's the hydro boat launch and then there's the park boat launch. And it goes to the lighthouse on the beach. And then lighthouse south to Davis Creek is Crown land.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was there.
Pardon?
I didn't realize that was RDCK Park.
It is a regional park, yeah. There's also, can I mention the other things in
Yeah.
that service? So there's also Ainsworth Historical Site. The wharf there is an RDCK park. This service also covers, so the three parks are only maybe half the budget, maybe a little more. The other half is what's called a contribution service.
Oh, there's slots on that.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry.
Right.
Just parks here.
My bad.
Okay, no worries. I'll jump into that. Okay, so a bit more about the parks. So we're working on a regional parks, trails, and water access strategy. So that project began a couple of years ago with the completion anticipated this spring, with a final report to be reviewed by the board and followed by external review and public engagement. And here's the recreation side. These contribution services or grants for recreation throughout Kaslo Area D. As you can see, there's a fair number of them. So about a $29,000 increase in grants covering recreation, the arena, a reserve for the arena, curling rink, Ainsworth Hall, community center, three community centers, and then Kaslo Park.
The curling rink one is good to note that, so we've also provided capital funds to these halls over the years. This year, the Kaslo curling rink gets that capital fund of $7,500 on top of the operations, which is the $10,000.
Okay, library short slides, 5% taxation increase in 2026. Is there anything?
Underfunded.
What's that?
Underfunded.
No, we're getting to where they need to be ever since, it's been since we've been directors that we've
Good.
given the increases. And I think in 2 more taxation years, they'll be on par with other libraries.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Hi, Mike, you coming in?
Okay. Jump over to water utilities, a couple servicing this area.
You can come on in. Come on.
So McDonald Creek to service 246, 0% requisition and parcel tax increase, and working on an agreement renewal with Village of Kaslo. Woodbury 4% user fee increase, 7% parcel tax increase, and some community work funded projects are listed there.
It was 80,000 in community work.
Was it?
Yes.
Okay.
That's how expensive those generators and installation are.
I don't know what this slide. Okay, and jumping over to emergency planning. So this 162 is specific to Kaslo Area D, but emergency planning is a service that covers all the electoral areas and a few of the smaller municipalities in the regional district. So I believe it's service A100, A101 is the emergency management services. So all those costs are gathered there, and then and then allocated out across the various individual services. As mentioned earlier, one of the big initiatives is the continuing implementation of Emergency Disaster Management Act, otherwise known as EDMA, sorry. So this has to do with plans, risk assessments, business continuity plans, jurisdictional planning is underway, working on aligning bylaw policy procedures and templates, and expansion of the neighborhood emergency preparedness program. Part of this is Indigenous engagement, and then as well as this emergency management is we're continuing to work on increasing emergency support services, working on modernizing the systems, and then as well as looking after fire smart programs, including assessments, rebates, etc.
Can I comment on this one? Yet?
Yes.
So at our board meeting on Thursday, we received with Emergency Disaster Management Act and many of the new regulations that come in place, the province will provide funding portals or funding opportunities to support the work they're now requiring us to do. We received responses on 2 of those projects that are under EDMA that we were declined that funding. One, I don't remember what they were. Regardless, I requested the board to support me as chair to write a letter to the province indicating we will be putting these at the bottom of our work plan until you can adequately fund the new requirements. I don't know, Susan, I don't know if you commented on that at the time or you have any.
No, just on the board agenda. So I spoke about.
Oh, the other two, yeah, what they were.
Yeah.
One is hazard risk vulnerability assessments, HRVA. So one of the requirements under EDMA is to do risk assessments as a regional district. And I've been grateful to be part of the provincial committee that kind of went through, they bring in a few people to go over through regulations from local government to say, does this work? And one of the biggest debates has been risk assessments because their understanding was our responsibility was our jurisdiction, our jurisdictional boundaries, which in electoral areas, 70% is Crown land, and we have nothing to do with operations on Crown land. So that became a large part of the debate over like, how can we do risk assessments on land we have nothing to do with, we don't control, we don't get those referrals, we're not engaged on those. So the approach was to do what's called a hazard risk vulnerability assessment, which is a really high level overview of where our risks. We've actually already done a lot of that work. But that was one of the grants that was declined, was to do a region-wide, what's called an HRVA. And the other one was the multi-jurisdictional planning process, which they've also changed from required to optional, I believe.
Okay, 911, which we touched upon briefly already. So just under 5% taxation increase. So this is driven by rising costs, declining external revenue. This trend is expected to continue due to inflation and ongoing reduction of landline use. So if anybody still has a landline, you'll notice there's a 911 user fee on it, which helps fund the service. If you look on your cell bill in British Columbia, you don't have that fee. So there's been sort of a continued push, especially from the local government level, is to try and get 911 fees added to mobile billing to help fund this. So general admin fee has been decreased in this service just to align with the actual usage. And expenditure increases are mainly due to higher contracted services for ECOM 911 dispatch, which is based out of the Okanagan, so we call 911. It goes there for dispatch. And then if it's fire related, it goes to Fraser Fort George, which is a regional district that runs basically a fire dispatch call center. And they charge us a fee for that. And then there's $62,000 for GIS services for continued support integrating new Gen 911. And we're looking, staff are seeking direction to apply for some grants to offset some of those costs. And there's, 4, capital project plans, to maintain the regional, dispatch infrastructure, mainly, I believe related to like, radio repeaters, and equipment like that.
I just wonder, Yev, with the 911, whether there'll be a further decrease in the number of landlines with the imposition of the PST on land.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Tax the seniors.
They're also gonna be taxing engineering, which is gonna.
Engineering, architectural,
Yeah.
accounting.
On the levies, I did want to know that this board has taken it to the province several times to have those fees applied and noted we presented the financial impacts of no longer having the levies being a part of how we can fund this service. Also the increase, and this is an example of where, with the technology and all the switch over, that's increased costs. Not only have we decreased revenue from the service, from the fees, but we've also increased costs because the technology has changed, which isn't a bad thing. And so okay, well, here's a grant you can apply for, but it's not guaranteed in any way. So we've taken that to the province several times. And then I believe you've also taken it to Federation of Canadian Municipalities because it's a joint endeavor, whether it's CRTC or who mandates that. So we kind of talked to both levels of government about that one.
And then, fire protection, response, and first responder, there's 3 services. Kaslo Fire Protection, which covers the village of Kaslo and part of Area D. 11% taxation increase, primarily driven by salaries, professional development, or training related to firefighter wages, and for full officer roster, new recruits, and increase in call volume, first responders. Second service is the Ainsworth Woodbury Fire Response, S278. So actually a taxation decrease based on lower assessment value. And then a new service that started last year, I believe. The second year is 299 medical first responder is seeing a taxation decrease this year because a good chunk of last year's expenditures was getting the service going. And now that it's started, it'll be, well, it's gone down to a lower cost.
And I think to note here is that Kaslo Fire had the highest call volume last year out of the entire regional district.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Which is, it's nice to see a full officer roster. Mary Hewitt and I actually went through this budget just the other day and noted that the salaries had increased. And we're trying to figure out why. And it's because we actually finally have a full roster, which is incredible. We've worked really hard to get there. We were also one of the first fire services to opt to start paying for our chiefs and providing stipends to try and manage constant overturn.
And because they have so much more responsibility than years ago when it could be fully volunteer run, but now it can't be. There's so much reporting and
Administration, training, and tracking. Yeah. Okay, I think this is the last service we're going to talk about. So transit. So service 239 is the service that covers this area. So some initiatives. So health connection funding over the next 3 years has seen a fairly high increase. So that'll help stabilize some of the increases. We have been working on implementing a new apportionment method. Not going to go into details here. Transit in the regional district based on a long history and was made up of 4 different services, and they were all crossing over each other, and it was really difficult to make changes. So Tom Mills put in a lot of effort, including with in conjunction with the transit committee, to come up with something that's going to hopefully be a bit more transparent and work a little better. So service charges service changes that we mentioned presented in 2026 will potentially lead to cost savings. So having said that, large taxation increase this year, and then going steady after that. So what's causing that? There was a large amount of surpluses and reserves that were available. So those were used up over the last couple of years. I think some of those flowed out of the pandemic or COVID funding. Some of those reserves, so those were are not there anymore. So this should lead to a more sustainable level. And then there will be some of the operating cost increases basically stem from the contract BC Hydro, some asset management, and then transfers to another source to fund some of the connecting services.
Just transit, not hydro.
Yeah. Okay.
This is one that was service bit me when we used a prior surplus last year.
Yep.
Because it goes up 20,000 for area D. But it's mostly because we had a prior surplus. We applied a large amount of it last year to keep taxation down, and this year we got to pick up the difference. Learned a lesson with that one.
Okay, so we're going to jump into the last bit of the presentation, which are these pie charts. So what we've done here for each sort of sub area in area D and Kaslo, we're trying to portray here what makes up your tax bill and how it looks on a pie chart. So a little bit hard to read both on the screen and maybe from home, but these presentations will be available tomorrow up on the meeting site. So if you really want to get into the details, you can look at it there. So this first one is for Village of Kaslo property owners. So per $100,000 of home value, about a $207 tax bill over 190 last year, and the largest part of the tax bill is the fire protection, which is approaching just under half, probably 40% of the bill, and then resource recovery, the library, and then the Parks and Rec service. So between those services, you're probably just over 75, almost 80% of the tax bill for Village of Kaslo property owners for RECK services. So Meadow Creek, this service or this residents in this area, their largest part of the tax bill is actually mosquito control, and then followed by resource recovery, and then the Parks and Rec service.
And mosquito control is actually subsidized every year. This year it's a $40,000 subsidy from community development. It's expensive. You got a lot more land than you got people up there.
Yeah. So Pine Ridge, fire protection, again, resource recovery, Parks, Rec, library. You're approaching about 75% of your tax bill. And this has the Area D first responder that was added last year, which looks like it's about the fifth largest component. Area D, somebody with no mosquito and no fire service. So now refuse disposal, library, Parks and Rec, and the first responder, the bulk of your tax bill.
Any questions on any of those?
So you can see, depending where you live, it really, really changes what it, not only the dollar amount of your tax bill, but how it's broken out.
So what was the main ones for area D, the general area D? It was fire protection and
All been done by area, so it's been Meadow Creek.
yeah, no, I know, but for the general one, the last one you mentioned was area D. You said there was no mosquito, no.
Oh, well, that was a part of Area D, not, let me go back.
So Pine Ridge has a mosquito service. So that would be that one. And your fire protection is the biggest chunk. If you go to the next slide, yes.
Yeah.
This is where you're in no mosquito service. There's two. And this one does this have fire services?
No,
This is no fire services.
no, a fire and a mosquito.
Yeah, so like Schroeder. Ainsworth has a fire service, and I'm just noting that it's not, I don't know that it's listed here because it's actually a really small service area. So this kind of general one would not be Ainsworth. For Ainsworth, you're looking at,
Here's the-
oh, thank you, with fire. You've got it. Nice job.
Yeah,
So there you go.
Yeah, refuse disposal, parks, rec,
That-
library. Transit, first responder and fire services. So, this one's got about 6 or 7 or 8 services that make up 75% of it.
And the Ainsworth service is about $40,000 compared to $560,000 for the Kaslo and D service. It's a different service. It's a response only. It doesn't qualify under fire insurance or anything like that because it's response only, whereas Kaslo and D are a full fire hall. Based on regulations, you can't be further than, let's say, 10 kilometers from a hall.
13.
13.
It's 13, but they use different metrics that make it like Woodbury is too far. So in that case, if you have a fire in your community, either Kaslo or Balfour respond. And it's actually 20,000. It goes 10 to each.
Okay, so that's the Ainsworth, Woodbury. So this is something area B with Kaslo fire protection. So again, about 30% of the bill, refuse disposal, parks and rec, library, and then transit make up about 75% of the bill. And that is the end of the presentation. So is there any other questions or discussion from that?
What are the big chunks within Parks and Rec? You mentioned that was a big piece of the Kaslo pie.
Go back to that.
Oh,
So, yeah.
okay.
Does that break out further?
There's 3 slides that show what parks
Okay.
were and then what the halls were. So there's about 7 halls and 5 parks that are funded through that service.
Yeah, so here this is the
Perfect. I
grants.
can read it. Yep.
Two halls, arena, Berlin Range. And Aspen Park. And then the other chunk, so that's sort of the recreation side of it, and the community hall side of it, and then there's 3 parks, only 2 of which are listed here because these are seeing the bulk of the improvements this year. Glacier Creek and Largo, and then the other one that's not listed here is the Ainsworth Wharf. Yeah. So again, this presentation will be available online, so you can
Great.
if you want to dig into the detail a little further.
But I'm happy to answer any questions
Sure.
for you
Yeah.
afterwards, Mike.
Yeah, that works too. Yeah.
The bulk of that increase is the what we call contribution services. It's the grants to the rec halls, and we're doing a 7,500 contribution in capital to the curling rink on top of their operations. And then every other hall, not all of them, but some of them had some bigger operational increases. And so that was the 29,000. It's pretty much wrapped up in those contributions to our halls. We don't own and operate them, so it's a lot cheaper, but we give them a grant to do it themselves.
Deliver so many services for in the communities. The communities basically give
the
themselves
Mhm.
some assistance with the operational costs.
Really, he's got questions?
I thought it was past meeting.
Yeah.
It's good.
So we'll send the quiz out by email.
Repeat the first hour and a half.
You also have a server online. Actually only records, but by all means. I'm assuming it's Vita or Deb. If you guys have questions, feel free to unmute and ask away. Yeah, it might be both of them, or maybe they're on twice. Or chat too. I know. Oh, it was Tanya who had a hard time. She couldn't connect up to the Zoom.
That's just interesting how specific it is per area. It's just interesting how specific it is per area. Like,
Oh, your taxation? Yeah, it really, really changes. And actually, this Kaslo Area D for one municipality and one sort of rural area probably has the most variability.
Mhm.
I think part of it's because of the mosquito control, right? You throw
Right.
that variability in there. The other areas, it's mostly in the rural area, you either have fire protection or you don't, right? But this has quite a bit of variability in the,
And you didn't list, like, I live in I have a property in McDonald Creek area, and you didn't list that as one of the breakout, like as a specific breakout in the pie charts? And is that because we would be listed as with fire suppression, but you didn't talk about the water?
It's all parcel tax.
It's all
So parcel tax doesn't get a percentage. You'll even see it in the financial plan. It's a zero out.
Perfect.
But it's been for the D component, which is parcel tax primarily for infrastructure.
Mhm.
Because we contract to the village will send you your utility bill.
That's right.
But the parcel tax is been the same rate since I've been the director. And that's part of, working the agreement, making sure asset management's not just the pipes on the ground in that area, but the full water system. So that's part of the agreement we're working on. Yeah, and Area D is the largest electoral area. So those discrepancies or those like defined services, as they call them, even the library is not all of Area D. No, it was quite interesting when we went to explain that all of Area D books are very contentious.
Yep.
Yeah.
But the fire service is at such a limited square kilometer, and we're actually like it's 4 hours to get from Coffee Creek up to the top of Gerard, and that's one way. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate how our services are broken out like that, because and one thing that isn't always well understood is that to determine what your taxation needs are, like how much do I need to run the service?
Yeah.
It's generally speaking, I'm looking at you because there's a lot more detail to it, but operations plus capital minus revenue. Like our resource recovery is a mix of taxation and revenue from fees. And then that's what you're charging. So it's never like a general, like, let's just do $1 million this year. Like they have to be as specific as possible.
Right.
Because you really don't want a deficit. And a surplus, not a bad idea, but you don't want too much of a surplus because then you're not doing your budgeting very well. But it is what makes it so complex, and why we have 180 services is because we can't mix and match them. Like I can't move the money between services or anything.
And and the regional district doesn't do business license, correct? So you don't take any revenue from that.
No.
But the village does.
But only within municipal boundaries.
But you can do
Like
like
some community, yeah, do somebody,
Yeah.
yeah.
You can do inter-community business licensing. What's that?
That's if you live
So-
outside of the village, you can give them money.
No way.
So if
So many suggestions.
somebody in the village wants to do business in Nelson, or I'm not sure what all the communities are that are participants in that, but so they buy an intercommunity business license, which allows them to do business. in
Oh,
other
okay,
communities
gotcha.
Without going to each community and buying a license.
Yeah. Okay.
You buy one for the group, but you pay your basic license fee in Kaslo plus the intercommunity, which is an additional amount. And that was, probably 5 or more years ago that happened.
It's a savings for businesses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Or you can operate only in electoral areas and not pay any business licenses.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's not the advantage. We've got nothing else to help you. So
but we probably get a number of Area D businesses who will buy business licenses in Kaslo, because in order to do business, they should have a bit
Yeah.
in Kaslo, which that's
Yeah.
probably what they're gonna do.
yeah, definitely. I just didn't know you could do that. That's cool.
Yeah.
One of the observers left, so I'm not sure if the other observer had any questions, but they didn't say anything.
And even dropped off.
Elaine left, yeah.
Okay.
She probably thought it was about South Beach and it wasn't. I was kidding.
I did put a budget report out that went by service as well in terms of the actual numbers broken down. So that's on my director's page and through links, and I'll do an update before the second week of March that I'll put out. And I only focus on Area D. I don't
Yeah.
talk about Kaslo.
Good job. And you obviously like what you do because that was well done.
okay, thank you.
He gets to practice on us before he goes to the tougher communities.
First one.
It's the first one this year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's usually Salmo, but, some do to Kaslo, no.
And do you have to go to them all too, Amy, as the chair? No.
Yeah, so all the directors will come to their individual ones, so.
And what's is the libraries? I know, like, 'cause I do ECDF for rural BC, and rural libraries they're always saying underfunded, understaffed. And so the provincial average of funding, so you guys are just below, just something nice that I
Yeah.
can share that Kaslo, like that you guys have been increasingly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you go on to North Kootenai Lake Services, which is our subcommittee for just our Kaslo and Area D services, there is a presentation in there that explains how we've increased their funding levels so that they're closer to the per capita funding that is received in other communities. So
Was that at the January shared services?
might have been January that Celia attended.
I think it was January, actually, before January. None of the agendas are posted anymore. Unfortunately, I've asked about that.
On the new website, yeah.
IT, FYI, we need those agendas up.
Posting now.
But if you can't find it, just send us a note.
Yeah.
But I remember the village hall was over there when we had the first delegation that basically said, this is how much we're underfunded. And we would originally it was a 4.2 increase per year that we kind of we do budgets every year. They're 5-year financial plans, so we can include in those 5-year plans. This is our intention.
Yeah.
And we started that, I want to say now that's a good 7-8 years ago.
Yeah, we've been here since 2018.
Yeah, okay, so more than that.
Yeah.
But there is a library group coming to the board to make a presentation on what libraries are facing across the province, because BC has not been, if anything, they've reduced their funding over the years. And like many other things, they assume that we'll just pick up the difference.
Right. Doing more with less.
More with less, figure it out.
Well, and being at UBCM last year and hearing the presentation that they have more things that they do, like unofficially, that's their warming centers, there are places for people to go, who are homeless.
It's the original incubator for entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Yeah. I have nobody online that's asking.
Okay,
anything.
I'll,
Disconnect.
disconnect later.
Thanks, Jeff.